In today's video, we have all the latest NHL trade rumors heading closer to the trade deadline. Today, we're focusing on teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Vegas Golden Knights, the Montreal Canadiens, the Vancouver Canucks, and the New York Rangers. We also have a big update on the future of the Arizona Coyotes. We should have an update from the league soon, and we're looking at 3 potential outcomes. We also got news on the next Winter Classic, news from the waiver wire, and some roster moves. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and some trade rumors to take a look at here today. We're getting, of course, another day closer to the NHL trade deadline coming up in just over 1 month's time. Obviously, we've seen some pretty big deals already. We do expect, more rumors to kind of percolate and heat up here as we get closer in the next few weeks. But it wouldn't be surprising at this point to see a little bit of activity every so often. I don't think that a bunch of teams are going to want to wait too close to the deadline. We've seen teams wanting to get ahead of things and get their business taken care of a little bit sooner. But we do want to kick off today's video with news from the NHL waiver wire. Today, the Winnipeg Jets were able to fully activate Mark Scheifele. So he's in the lineup playing tonight. To do that, they had to place forward Axel Jonsson-Falby on waivers because he'll have to be demoted if he clears, that is, to the American Hockey League. So he's on waivers. We'll find out at 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow if indeed he'll clear or if he gets picked up. But that was required today. We also had news from the waiver wire, which was a little bit unexpected, but I guess it was a mutual decision. The New York Rangers today placed veteran forward Nick Bonino on unconditional waivers for the purpose of contract termination. Now, we had talked about Bonino back last week. He was on regular waivers for the purpose of being demoted to the American Hockey League. He did clear, and the Rangers, I believe, theoretically did, at least on paper, send him down to the minors. I believe they gave him the option, though, of not reporting immediately, and he had some time, including up to the end of the NHL All-Star break, if he wanted to report or not. And they said if he didn't want to, that they would work with him to terminate the contract. That's the other option here. So they've mutually agreed to do that. So waivers is required. So that contract termination won't be official until 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. But according to NHL insiders, there's already other teams that are showing some interest in a potential signing here of this soon-to-be UFA. So Bonino will be done with the Rangers as of tomorrow afternoon and can sign pretty much anytime thereafter with another team. Obviously, there's teams looking for depth bottom 6 centers before the playoffs. I know his old team in Pittsburgh, I believe, were one team that was mentioned as maybe having a little bit of interest, but we will see. He's certainly looking to weigh out his options in the NHL before considering any other options outside of that. So we'll see if the veteran centerman can catch on a contract for the rest of the year with a different NHL team. A few other activations and roster moves here today. A couple of guys coming back from injury after the All-Star break. The Devils activated Thomas Nosek, and the Flyers activated Owen Tippett. So they're both fully ready to return. Now, we also got some news as well on a potential couple of games coming up in a different series here, including the Winter Classic and Stadium Series. NHL sources are saying that the Winter Classic next year will definitely be in Chicago. Now, we had talked about this shortly after this year's Winter Classic, that I know Elliot Friedman had speculated that based on what he had seen and heard, that he very much expected the league to push a promotion around Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks for next year's Winter Classic, and that is indeed what's going to be happening. It will be hosted again, I believe it was there once before, at Wrigley Field in Chicago, and the Chicago Blackhawks are expected to battle the St. Louis Blues. Now, I've seen immediate reaction to this, people saying Chicago again, and obviously I understand it. There's lots of teams that have not had an outdoor game or a stadium game or anything of that nature, whereas you get the same teams that are repeatedly, Chicago, Pittsburgh, New York. Like, there's a lot of teams that are over and over and over. The Blackhawks have been involved in quite a few outdoor different games and different unique games over the last 10 to 15 years. But at the end of the day, as much as I do agree with those sentiments, they do want to, build hype around certain particular star players in the league. Also want to go to the bigger markets where they know they for sure they can fill a massive stadium that can hold a bigger crowd that the NHL arenas are used to. That's why you do typically see them kind of stick to, even though it's 32 teams, you're probably looking at 8 to 10 markets that seem to get most of these games. But that is expected to be the 2025 Winter Classic. It's also expected, which has not been confirmed by the NHL yet, but should be sometime soon. They're going to be doing a 2025 Stadium Series, and one of the games will be hosted by the Columbus Blue Jackets at a nearby arena. So we'll see where they're going to hold that one. But certainly the 2025 Stadium Series is going to be including them. That much we do know according to NHL sources. Now, the other big news item that came across today was the Daily Faceoff and Frank Saravalli talking about the fact that we should have an update within the next week on the future of the Arizona Coyotes. Now, according to NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman, he had indicated that we should have answers on the future of the Coyotes within the next few weeks, probably kind of indicating it could be later this month. But according to Saravalli sources, it's likely, and not a guarantee though, but it seems like a good opportunity that we could get that within the next week. Now, there's 3 different outcomes here that Saravalli puts in his recent article on Daily Faceoff. One of which, of course, is that they actually have a new arena in place, and they, finalize the purchase of a parcel of land, and they get the ball rolling and get shovels in the ground quickly. Right now, that does seem unlikely with what we've heard, but you never know. Sometimes things can come together quickly, I guess. Another option, of course, is that they relocate. And obviously, relocation seems like all indications are that Salt Lake City, Utah, is basically, by the looks of things, going to be the team kind of in reserve and waiting, if you will, that if things don't materialize and they have to go, that would be the most likely landing spot. I mean, it would keep them in the same division, same Western Conference, and it would keep the league, in even numbers across the divisions and conferences for the time being. Obviously, there's been lots of talk about expansion, and I do definitely see that happening sometime in the next few years. I expect probably more of a formal, official process on that. Probably sometime later this year, but it's difficult to say exactly when that's going to happen. But we'll see. But Salt Lake City does seem to be the most likely relocation, and we're going to probably be finding out soon enough. The third option that doesn't really seem to get a lot of talk is the possibility that they stay in Arizona, but the team ends up being sold. You got to remember here, obviously, that this current ownership group has obviously already tried and unfortunately failed on numerous plans to get a new arena in place. I know Frank Saravalli also talks about in his article how they were basically, not welcome anymore at Gila River Arena. I know some Coyotes fans seem to disagree with that, but there was lots of articles and confirmation of the fact that they were well behind on their bills when it comes to lease payments and different taxes and things. I mean, they had to come up with payments on that pretty quickly shortly thereafter, even within a short span there, back like a year ago or whatever that was, like before they moved to Mullet Arena. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know. I mean, if they are sold, though, it's believed that maybe like the owners of the Phoenix Suns could buy them and figure out an arena themselves. I mean, it is also believed if the Coyotes do end up having to relocate and leave the Arizona market, that they're very, very likely to get another team through expansion within whenever that next round of expansion comes, that they'd have to find the right ownership group with the right location, land, etc. They could figure out the arena and get it done. I know it's a big market. It's an untapped market for hockey. Still lots of growth opportunities. And they feel like if they can find the right arena solution, that it can work there. But at the end of the day, right now, they've had this ownership group and the few before them have had a really difficult time, impossible time of getting that figured out, which is why they're in the mess that they are here today. But it does sound like it's quite possible that within the next week, we might actually have some official clarity on the future of the Arizona Coyotes. I think the only way they play in Mullet Arena next year is if they have firm plans and, shovels in the ground on a new arena to start the process of building it. If not, I don't see a scenario where they continue to play in Mullet Arena with no firm plans. They'll end up in Salt Lake City, I think, really is the more likely outcome, in my opinion, as of today. But things can change quickly, and obviously, we don't have all the information on what's going on behind the scenes there in Arizona. Now, on the trade rumor front, all kinds of things to talk about here today. One, Toronto Maple Leafs, fourthperiod.com, Dave Pagnotta, talking about the fact that a couple of players that the Leafs are getting asked about as they're having trade conversations and making, potential deadline deals to try to improve their team here for the playoffs. A couple of players that are still, at this point, a hard no from Brad Treliving is top prospects Easton Cowan and Fraser Minten. It's believed that the Maple Leafs have no interest at this point, at least, in trading either of those top prospects. They do have interest in Chris Tanev, but like I said before, the asking price is a fairly high-ranked prospect in a second-round pick, and right now the Leafs don't have a second-round pick for, I think it's 3 years. They would have to offer up a first-round pick, and it seems like it seems unlikely right now, but you just never know. Things can change, and we'll have to see where that goes. But it's also believed that the Leafs and the Philadelphia Flyers have had conversations around both Sean Walker and Nick Seeler. The Leafs do have interest in both blue liners, and it's believed that the Philadelphia Flyers offered both to Toronto if they wanted to repay them with a first-round pick, and the Leafs reportedly rejected that offer as well. So obviously, there's lots of talks around defensemen for Toronto that's being had, and the price tags are high, and so far not something that they're able to figure out, which is why they haven't pulled the trigger on a deal. But I guess if you're, a Leaf fan especially, would you pull the deal? Pull the trigger on a deal to trade a first-round pick if you got both defensemen with Walker and Seeler coming from the Philadelphia Flyers? We'll have to see where that goes, but it is believed that the blue line is the most likely area that the Leafs will attempt to want to upgrade on. Of course, when it comes to goaltending, Sheldon Keefe made mention of the fact that Joseph Woll still does not have a defined timeline on return. Samsonov has been better as of late since he had a break from the team and came back. And then, of course, you get Marty Jones, who's been okay as well. But, are they comfortable going into the playoffs? If Wall can't return, for example, if he's going to be too long recovering, do they want any additional depth of that position as well? It does make me wonder. I don't know that they necessarily would do it, or are they going to take their chances? I think a lot of that will be determined by the health of Joseph Woll. So we'll see where that goes. In Vegas, of course, they're very much expected to be a playoff team. They're currently in a spot now and have good odds of hanging on for sure. One name that's been brought up that Vegas could look to add in the forward group is former Golden Knight, former Misfit Riley Smith. Of course, that's going on the assumption that the Penguins eventually do become sellers and move on. He is a pending unrestricted free agent. Obviously, a player that's very familiar there, would fit in very, very easily. And if the Penguins ate half the salary for the rest of the season, that could make things a lot more doable for Smith to return to the Golden Knights. It would not surprise me one bit if the Penguins don't end up in the playoffs or do end up selling off a few assets, that he ends up back there. Now, the Vancouver Canucks are reportedly interested in adding on the blue line. We've already seen them add Elias Lindholm. Of course, one of the top trade targets of the NHL trade deadline this year ended up in a Canuck uniform, playing his first game tonight. And actually, as I record this, the game, I think it was only in the second period, and he's already got 2 goals. So he's off to a fantastic start with his new club. But now it looks like they're definitely interested in adding some more depth on the blue line. And there is some reports suggesting that they are interested in Habs defenseman David Savard. Now, Ken Hughes has previously stated that he's not actively looking to move David Savard after he traded Sean Monahan. While speaking to the media, he was asked a few questions about other moves the team might look at doing and other players that might be on the move later. And Savard's name was referenced there. And I believe he said that it's not somebody who he's actively looking to move. But you have to think that if teams come calling, and I think they will, he's got experience, he's got a Stanley Cup, he's a right shot, he's a good penalty killer, good shot blocker. I think he's going to get lots of interest. And just because he said that publicly, you got to remember, general managers are always working on altering or increasing the value of their players. I mean, if teams think he doesn't want to move them, and that means he's looking to get a better offer, if you're willing to overpay, so to speak, trying to up the ante here a little bit on a return. I really think with the large number of defensemen that are in that system, even though there's a lot of them that are younger, I do think they really need to consider moving 1 or 2D, and really it makes sense. If the right offer is there, I think they would do it. So we'll see. Doesn't mean the Canucks are going to do it. It's going to boil down to the asking price and if they can make it work cap-wise. Not going to be easy, but we could see another trade between the Vancouver Canucks and the Montreal Canadiens. And in New York, Darren Dreger of TSN is reporting that the Rangers were one of the teams that were in on Elias Lindholm right to the end. Obviously, they were more interested in a different kind of package than what the Canucks were offering. So clearly the Canucks won that battle and got the deal done. But apparently owner James Dolan is not overly interested in the team moving their 2024 first round pick. Obviously this year's draft is going to be held at the Sphere in Las Vegas, which is owned by Dolan himself and his company. So clearly it's going to be quite the spectacle. It's going to be the last draft of this format. And Dolan would like the team to be, up on the stage and very much involved in the festivities. So it's believed that he would request that they not move their 2024 first round pick. So we may not see the Rangers do that. If they're going to make moves, it's going to be a little bit more challenging by not moving that pick, of course. And there is some belief out there too, because I've talked about it recently that Capo Caco could be available. I've seen more reports today saying that there's definitely belief that for the right deadline deal, the Rangers would consider him. He's not an untouchable player. So we'll have to see what the Rangers end up doing. If they were in on Lindholm, it makes you think that they're definitely looking at, obviously, the center position, which makes sense with the absence of Filipino. So I fully suspect the Rangers to be probably trying to make multiple moves here ahead of the deadline, but it's going to be challenging if they're trying to retain that first round pick. So we'll see what they end up doing in that front. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.